Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Elected local government operatives in Trinidad and Tobago have been operating within the remit of the law. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Wednesday, 31st May 2023. Details when we return.
Hubbard's Motor Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies Compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
Welcome back. They were operating in good faith. This was the premise on which Attorney General Reginald Amor, Senior Counsel, piloted the Municipal Corporation's Extension of Terms of Office and Validation Bill 2023 in the House of Representatives. According to the AG, councillors and aldermen up until May 18th were operating within the remit of the law. TV6's Alicia Boucher has more in this report.
The Municipal Corporation's Extension of Terms of Office and Validation Bill 2023 is a short piece of legislation with only 5 clauses to be passed by only a simple majority. However, the impact of it is dire, as it validates the additional time councillors and aldermen would have spent in office up to May 18th and the decision that they made. It also validates the decisions that are to be made 90 days from May 18th to facilitate local government elections. In piloting the legislation, Attorney General Reginald Amor, Senior Counsel, said the government has embarked on local government reform, for which legislation was passed in 2022 with the aim to further empower people. He referred to the statement made by the Prime Minister on May 24th.
And it suffices for me to say that as part of my pilot today, I entirely adopt and accept that statement as informing our considerations today for the passage of this bill into law.
The Attorney General had this to say concerning the Privy Council and amendments to the legislation which gives councillors and aldermen a 4-year term in office as opposed to 3 years.
The Privy Council accepted the Court of Appeal of Trinidad and Tobago's record of the historical evolution of this legislation up to the proclamation of Sections 11.4 and 12.5 of the Municipal Corporations Act. The Privy Council has held that the extension of the term of office of incumbent councillors and aldermen by 1 year constituted no violation of the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago, but that that extension by amendment could not be interpreted as applying to the incumbent councillors and aldermen whose terms expired in December 2022.
But prior to that May 18th ruling, Amor contends that councillors and aldermen had no way of knowing that a term in office would be deemed illegitimate, given that the government was of the view that they could have held office for the 4-year term, further solidified by the courts in T&T.
This was plainly not an unreasonable view, and was one held in good faith, since this was also the view of a unanimous Court of Appeal of Trinidad and Tobago. More directly, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the incumbents acted in their offices after the 10th of February, pursuant to the decision of the Court of Appeal, which held on that date that the 4-year term applied to them.
As such, the AG states that their actions should be considered legitimate, as he notes that they continued to perform and received their salaries. But Amor says it is the nation which benefited from the services they provided, such as ensuring garbage collection and sanitation, public health, municipal police, and the maintenance of local roads, bridges, public buildings and spaces, etc. He says validation of the acts of these councillors and aldermen would remove any uncertainty caused by the Privy Council ruling. This is found in Clause 5 of the bill.
That provides that where the councillors and aldermen under Section 3 exercised the functions of councillors and aldermen between 2nd of December 2022 and the 18th of May 2023, and thereafter exercised the functions of councillors and aldermen up until the commencement of this act, The exercise of those functions and all acts or things done pursuant thereto shall be deemed to have been as valid and effectual as if the Municipal Corporations Act expressly empowered them to exercise those functions.
The AG says the writs of election would be issued in due course by the Elections and Boundaries Commission. Alicia Boucher, TV6 News.
The United National Congress opposition party in Trinidad and Tobago continues to put pressure on the government to call the local government election now, but one political analyst says it's a waste of time. TV6's Nicole M. Romney has this report.
According to Dr. Bishnu Raghunath, the PNM will continue to allege corruption in the UNC while it was in power, while the UNC will continue to state that none of its ministers were ever charged. And the cycle repeats. Still, he says, it may benefit the incumbent.
Yes, the fact that the PNM will continue to make allegations that the UNC has been a corrupt government when it was in office, that is going to allow the PNM to mobilize its base to say we cannot put these people back into office, and that is the impact it will have.
However, he notes that constant calls for the election serves no real purpose. He says the fact of the matter is, regardless of what the UNC says, the local government election will be held between July 10th and August 18th. He adds there is no getting away from it. Whether the Prime Minister comes out today and announces or not, he cannot go beyond August 18th.
The question is, however, that everybody knows the election is upon us. We have the specific dates within which the election can be held, and it is now for the parties to mobilize. Now, if the UNC wants to keep on calling for call a date, and not put in place their mechanisms in regard to screening of candidates and so forth, and the Prime Minister decides to come and call the date, let's say July 10th, and catches the UNC unprepared, well, that's the UNC's business.
He says the main concerns for people on the ground are roads, crime, and other social problems.
The local government reform, the bill that was passed last year, if that is to be brought on straight, yes, local government authorities will get the funds coming in from property tax as relates to residential properties. But that is on the basis that we talk about the Revenue Authority. Now, we know for a fact that the Revenue Authority is not yet implemented. In fact, if I remember correctly, there's even, I think, the court calling for an injunction to prevent the startup of the Revenue Authority.
Nicole M. Romney, TV6 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
The Bank of Jamaica says it's watching U.S. debt ceiling decision closely. Javon Keys of TVJ's Business News has this report.
BOJ Governor Richard Biles says if a decision is not reached soon, the world could face even tighter economic conditions.
We certainly hope it comes to a soft landing during the course of this week, because it is not good for anyone throughout the world to have the U.S. be in a situation where they may default on payments or be unable to make payments. Most of our reserves are held in U.S. dollars, as is the case for most countries in the world. And so we all have that vested interest to see that, or to hope that that gets resolved very quickly.
The U.S. government has been trying to reach a decision to lift the self-imposed $31.4 trillion US dollar debt ceiling. Reuters reported today that it appears Democratic and Republican negotiators got more time to reach a deal to raise the ceiling, as Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said the government is likely to run out of money to pay its bills on June 5. That's 4 days later than previously predicted. Missing a payment in the U.S. could trigger a Wall Street meltdown of historic proportions.
The Governor General of Antigua and Barbuda cannot call a commission of inquiry without the advice of Cabinet. That's the conclusion of two King's Counsels whose legal opinions were requested by Governor General Sir Rodney Williams. Their opinions have been seen by ABS News, and Jamie J. Roger reports.
Sir Rodney sought the opinions after the opposition requested he set up a commission of inquiry into the arrival of hundreds of West Africans who came to the country on Antigua Airways and other flights between November and December last year. Section 2 of the Commissions of Inquiry Act 1880 makes it lawful for the Governor General to appoint a commission of inquiry whenever he shall deem it advisable. King's Counsel Alan S. Wood's legal opinion, dated May 5, 2023, concludes that the Governor General cannot appoint a commission of inquiry under the Commissions of Inquiry Act without Cabinet advice. King's Counsel Wood says to do so, the Governor General would not be in keeping with the Constitution and constitutional norms. At paragraph 18 of his opinion, he says the Governor General's power to appoint a commission of inquiry under the Act must be read in accordance with Section 80, subsection 1 of Antigua and Barbuda's 1981 Constitution. That section states, in the exercise of his functions, the Governor General shall act in accordance with the advice of Cabinet. This section also lists exceptions, which King's Counsel Wood concludes does not include commissions of inquiry. A legal opinion dated May 17, 2023, from King's Counsel Gregory Jones also references Section 80, subsection 1 of the Constitution. King's Counsel Jones also quotes Sir Frederick Albert Phillips, who says the term deem it advisable in legislation means the Governor General should act on the advice of Cabinet. Sir Frederick, a former governor of St. Christopher, Nevis, and Anguilla, served as chairman of this country's Constitution Review Commission in 1999. King's Counsel Jones says Sir Frederick's interpretation is in keeping with the convention and the sovereign acts on the advice of Cabinet. Jamie J. Roche, ABS News.
Back to Trinidad and Tobago, the Twin Island Republic has offered its candidate for president of the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly. TTT's Sune Lala has more on the sole candidate who will be contesting the position in June.
Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary Dennis Francis, Trinidad and Tobago's permanent representative to the United Nations in New York, will be contesting the position for president of the 78th session of the United Nations General Assembly. This position is to be elected from the group of Latin American and Caribbean states on June 1st at the UN General Assembly Hall. Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs Dr. Amory Brown first revealed TNT's intention to offer a candidate for the position during his address at the opening session of the UN General Assembly in New York in September 2022. In announcing TNT's candidacy on Monday, Dr. Brown noted that Ambassador Francis has an impeccable record of both qualifications and experience in the field, and said he believes the candidate will be impartial in his duties if elected.
Trinidad and Tobago's election to the presidency of the UN General Assembly constitutes a major foreign policy priority for the government. As a further manifestation of our undiluted faith in multilateralism in general and our commitment to the United Nations in particular.
TTT News understands that Ambassador Francis is the sole candidate, but must still receive 2/3 of the votes when the election is held to secure the position. In a video statement, Ambassador Francis said he is honored to accept the nomination and vowed to address several issues, including global peace.
We must recognize that being in a state of peace is not necessarily the same as the absence of war. Peace requires an all-out commitment. It requires constant nurturing, even during times when there are no hostilities.
Ambassador Dennis Francis has had a career spanning 40 years in the diplomatic service of TNT, 18 of which he held the rank of being the longest-serving ambassador of this country until his compulsory retirement from the career service in 2016. Sonolala, TTT News.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.